All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ruthless Discussions Podcast, episode number 9, a podcast all about the WWE Ruthless Aggression Era. This week on the podcast, we will be doing another retro review of the WWE ECW edition, September the 4th, 2007, the night CM Punk won the ECW World Championship. And some other pretty uneventful stuff happened on this show, but we're going to talk about the entire thing on this week's podcast. Alrighty, so if you tuned into, I believe it was the Survivor Series 2006 Retro Review podcast that we put up last Thursday on Thanksgiving. If you didn't, go check that out. It is up on the channel. It was one of 2 releases last Thursday because we missed a week the week before. So last Thursday, we uploaded the Survivor Series 2006 review as well as the top 10 rivalries of the Ruthless Aggression Era, of course, of my opinion. But those are both up on the channel right now, so you can go check those out. But the reason I bring those up specifically is, like, again, I believe it was in the Survivor Series review, I talked about how I knew what this week's podcast was probably going to be about, but I didn't want to announce it. And that was pretty much because I honestly wasn't going to do this episode of ECW and talk about it this week if CM Punk didn't return at Survivor Series. But since he did, I was like, all right, we're going to make this week's episode about CM Punk. And I toyed around with a couple of things. I thought either maybe the debut episode, or not the debut episode, I should say his debut on ECW in that episode from June 2006 or whenever it specifically is. I thought about either that, thought about doing this when he wins the ECW World title, even thought about doing the Raw where he won the World Heavyweight Championship and cashed in. This light is right in my eyes today. And cashed in against Edge. But I was like, you know what? Let's do the ECW World Championship because I specifically remember watching this episode right here in this room. I still live with my parents. Hey, listen, it's 2023. A lot of 20-year-olds still live with their parents. This economy is ridiculous. But this is what the podcast is all about. But it was right here in this room, which is now my office, but it was formerly my bedroom back in 2007. And the wall that I am facing right now, that the desk and everything is up against, this is where the bed was. The TV was up against that wall right over with the Star Wars figures that you guys cannot see because it was off camera. And I remember laying in bed, looking at the TV and watching this episode. And I specifically remember it not only because CM Punk won the championship, because it was the last night of summer, 2007. The next morning I started school. I believe I started third grade in 2007. So I remember it was the night before school, watching this, laying in bed, looking at TV, and then I probably crashed right after CM Punk won the championship. But you know how I've talked about this in recent episodes of the podcast. You know how you just have vivid memories sometimes, and those are one of my vivid memories from my childhood. So I went with this episode, I should say with this, notable CM Punk moment, if you will, during the Ruthless Aggression Era, which he caught, the last 2 years of, and did some monumental stuff. We're going to talk about it later, but literally CM Punk at one point wins 4 championships within a span of like a year. Like, we'll talk about it later, but CM Punk throughout 07 and 08, more specifically 08, was really raking it up in the WWE. Whether he liked it or not is a different story. But yeah, man, ECW 2007, September the 4th. This was US Bank Arena, Cincinnati, Ohio. Of course, main evented by CM Punk and John Morrison for the ECW Championship. But as always, guys, before we get into this week's podcast, do me a couple of favors. If you're watching here on YouTube, hit that like button down below. Be sure to subscribe, and if you want to support a little extra and get a couple of exclusive perks, you can hit the join button down below, which gives you access to some channel memberships right here on the No Nation Wrestling YouTube channel. First off is the Backstage Pass. You get access to some badges and emojis, emojis that you can specifically use in the comment section of videos like this. You also get a discount code for some discounted merchandise. My merch store linked down below in the description. And you also get early access to brand new videos, including the Ruthless Discussions podcast right here on the channel. And if you want to support a little bit more than that, you can hit the premium pass tier, become a premium pass holder. You get all the previous perks as we just mentioned, plus you get a bonus Ruthless Discussions podcast episode each and every month, starting in the month of December. So I don't know when it's going to be. Of course, December starts on Friday. It's going to be sometime in the month of December, but there will be an exclusive Ruthless Discussions podcast episode specifically for premium pass holders. So do me a favor, guys, if you want to support a little extra, hit that join button down below. But all in all, if you can't do that, just be sure to hit the like and subscribe. It goes a long way in growing the channel. Anyways, once more, let's get into this week's podcast. WWE ECW, September the 4th, 2007, US Bank Arena in Cincinnati, Ohio. If I'm looking down at my desk, it's because I'm looking down at the trusty notes, so bear with me there. But of course, a couple of notable things happened on this show. One notable thing, I should say, with Morrison and Punk in the main event. But that wasn't the only thing that took up this hour-long show. I believe they were on Sci-Fi back during this time. Of course, it doesn't really say on Peacock, but I believe this was the Sci-Fi days for WWE ECW. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were on Sci-Fi their entire run. Maybe they moved. I don't remember. It was a lot of those last few years of ECW were a blur. But you know, show opens up. There's a little bit of an introduction with Joey Styles talking about the main event. CM Punk earned a shot last week. He beat The Miz, Big Daddy V, and the Boogeyman in a Fatal 4-Way matchup the week prior to earn this match with John Morrison tonight. Shows the matchup for the main event, and then we get the intro to this show, and you know, I gotta say, I know WWE ECW, not a lot of good came from it, but I'll tell you one good thing that came from WWE ECW, and that's the theme song, Don't Question My Heart, don't question the fire that burns inside. I'm just saying, it was a fire intro back in the day. I was a big fan of, you know, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor as well, but then when they changed to this, I can't say I was complaining. And I'm pretty sure this was the theme song up until the end at that point. Once they switched to, Don't Question My Heart, Still Standing Here. Yeah, anyway. Fire theme song for ECW back in the day. Nonetheless, we kicked off this edition with the Boogeyman taking on Matt Striker. We were in for a treat that night in Cincinnati. But Matt Striker, before he makes his way to the ring. Actually, you know what? Can we hold that thought for a second? Can we hold that thought? I said one of the good things that came was the Don't Question My Heart theme song. You know, another good thing about WWE ECW, I liked the entrance. I know they just like put the curtain up to cover the SmackDown stage and then put the mini ECW entrance right in front of it. So like it was like right up against where the guardrails start on in the aisleway. But I liked the small ECW entrance back during this time. Once they switched to the once they switched to HD in 2008, all the stages just had all the shows just had the same stages, and ECW from there really just went completely down. I mean, listen, 2006, 2007, not saying they were great years by any means for WWE ECW, but once they switched to the HD in 2008, did WWE, and all the shows looked the same stage-wise, you know, really the essence of ECW was even more gone. And even throughout 2008, so many of these names were either gone from the company or just not on TV, like Balls Mahoney, who was on this show. I'm pretty sure he was either released in 2008 or was just not on TV. You know, Stevie Richards, I'm pretty sure was there, but not on TV. Kevin Thorne, Elijah Burke, like some of these names are pretty much on their way out in 2008. And then by the end of 2008, we got Matt Hardy and Mark Henry feuding for the ECW Championship, because that's Extreme Championship Wrestling. But nonetheless, where did we start off? Boogeyman and Matt Striker. Matt Striker introduces Big Daddy V. No, we're not talking about Randy Orton. We are talking about, formerly known as Viscera, Big Daddy V, who makes his way to the ring to accompany Matt Striker in this matchup. I'm not sure when Striker pretty much stopped wrestling and became the full-time manager of Big Daddy V. I don't think it was far off after this, because when we get to No Mercy 2007, the following month, Big Daddy V's fighting CM Punk for the ECW title, and Striker's in his corner for that. And then I don't remember Striker really wrestling after that until, I'm pretty sure he like randomly started wrestling again like late 2010, maybe sometime 2011, like had a couple squash matches on SmackDown. But that was pretty much it. Maybe NXT, but It was some time after this, but nonetheless, Matt Striker was the one wrestling in this matchup. And Big Daddy V was accompanying him at ringside. And this match was pretty much what you'd expect from a Boogeyman Matt Striker match. Not saying it was bad, but it certainly wasn't anything of note. Although I did make one note here, is that right before we got the finish, Boogeyman did a pretty badass looking stinger splash. I believe it was to the back of Matt Striker in the corner, and then came out of the corner all freaking moving around like the Boogeyman. It was kind of funny. There we go. And the stinger splash was pretty nice, I'm not going to lie. And then Matt Striker rolled to the outside. Boogeyman starts chasing him around the ring as Striker's calling over for Big Daddy V. And as Boogeyman comes around the one corner, Big Daddy V just wails the Boogeyman with a clothesline, so Boogeyman wins by disqualification, but Big Daddy V was not done there. The clothesline to the Boogeyman, which basically incapacitated him, but if he wasn't already, he certainly was after a Samoan drop by the man formerly known as Big Daddy V to the Boogeyman. I should say the man formerly known as Viscera. The man formerly known as Viscera, now known in 2007 as Big Daddy V, with a Samoan drop to the Boogeyman at ringside, and the Boogeyman was just there coughing up spit or whatever. But yeah, that was your opening matchup to ECW on that night. The Boogeyman defeating Matt Striker by disqualification. However, not looking so much like a winner because Big Daddy V made him pay for his sins on that night. So that was the opening matchup. Then we cut to the back with the ECW general manager. None other than Armando Alejandro Estrada. He used to do that, so I'm not pulling that out of my ass. He used to do that in his own introduction. But he was the ECW general manager for some reason. And CM Punk comes into his office. Punk's like, "You wanted to see me, Mr. Estrada?" And Armando Estrada basically says, "Listen, you earned your shot, but this is like the 4th time you've challenged John Morrison for the ECW title. So this is the last shot. Tonight is the last chance for CM Punk." So not only was the stage already set for a big-time world title main event, now it is CM Punk's last chance to get the job done. Armando Estrada wishes CM Punk good luck, and in CM Punk fashion, he says luck is for losers. And then we move on from that. We got Balls Mahoney taking on The Miz. And before we even talk about this matchup, this is the first time I've watched the Balls Mahoney match in quite some time, and especially from WWE ECW era. I probably haven't seen a Balls Mahoney WWE ECW match since whenever his last match was on WWE ECW back in the day. I go back and watch old ECW all the time, but just counting new, you know what I mean, WWE ECW, God only knows the last time I watched a Balls Mahoney matchup. But during this matchup, I couldn't help but think about when Jack started doing a separate ECW line, like after they came back. I believe Series 1 came out like April, May of 2007. I remember because I remember getting the figures. Eventually in that line, we get a Balls Mahoney figure. First Balls Mahoney WWE figure, Jax. It's an awesome figure, do not get me wrong. But obviously, this dude's first name was Balls, and this is a toy that is going to go in toy stores and local stores for your children. So putting the name Balls on a figure for a toy, or on a toy for a kid, there you go, wasn't really the ideal thing to do back then. So instead of saying Balls Mahoney on his action figure, it just says B Mahoney. I don't know why I thought about that during this thing. It just made me laugh. It also reminded me because I have a ECW One Night Stand 2005 Rey Mysterio up on the wall there. Mint on card, looks beautiful. But instead, obviously, same thing. They weren't going to write One Night Stand on a toy that was for a kid. And, nowadays, I feel like figures are just more for adults. Like, I feel like more adults collect figures and kids play with toys. But especially back then, it was a big market for the toys. So instead of writing One Night Stand on the packaging, it just says ECW pay-per-view, the return of ECW. It doesn't say anything about One Night Stand. So you got that, you got Balls Mahoney. There were some extreme things about ECW even then, guys, even then. A lot of it just the wording that did not translate well to kids' toys. But there's a little funny story for you for those who may not have known. Nonetheless, Balls Mahoney versus The Miz. The Miz came out with the Extreme Expose, which when I was like, what was I, 7, 8 watching this thing, I was like, Kelly? But The Miz comes out with the Extreme Expose, which was Kelly, Layla, and Brooke, I think she was Brooke Tessmacher, Testmate, whatever the hell her name was in TNA, because she eventually goes over there. Is that, am I thinking of the right person? Is this the same Brooke? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure her name was Brooke. But you got Brooke, question mark, I don't know. Layla and Kelly. Everybody knows Kelly. Everybody loves Kelly. I don't even mean that as a joke. Nonetheless, they're hitting that during this matchup. Riveting stuff to talk about here. They're hitting that during this matchup are Taz and Joey Styles. I'm sure this was just paining them the entire time, especially Joey Styles. Not just specifically this, but just this entire ECW run. They're talking about how Balls Mahoney's got a little eye for Kelly. Balls Mahoney, a little bit older, just gritty, beat up looking dude, looks like a bear out there. And then you got, beautiful Kelly at ringside, and they're like, Balls Mahoney's got an eye for Kelly. Plot twist, Kelly's got an eye for Balls Mahoney. Something brewing in the air there. Kelly had an eye for a lot of people. That was like a go-to underlining storyline during this time. We just talked about Survivor Series 06 last week, when she was, managing Mike Knox at the time, and during commentary on that night, during that time on ECW, it was, does Kelly have an eye for CM Punk? Now, a year later, does she have an eye for Balls Mahoney? I think she was just trying to get away from these jerks that they were booking her with, but nonetheless. What are we talking about? This is WWE ECW for you. During the matchup, because again, they're talking about Balls Mahoney's got eyes for Kelly. Joey Styles utters the line, what red-blooded man wouldn't have eyes for Kelly? And I agree. Not much happens here because it's Miz and Balls Mahoney, and it's Balls Mahoney older in his career, the Miz young in his career, so not necessarily a clash of titans here. But the Miz wins with the reality check, his old finishing maneuver before he switched to the skull crushing finale a few years later. And this is, of course, again, young Miz, where he still looks like a goofball out there. This is before the days of the trunks, and before the days of Miz being taken a little bit more seriously. But Kelly, not a fan of the Miz winning this matchup and beating up Balls Mahoney. She's like low-key cheering for Balls Mahoney in this matchup because Extreme Expose sitting at ringside. Kelly's doing a little clap for Balls Mahoney, just like, yeah, you go, dude, during this match. But Miz wins, again with the reality check, and then gets on the mic just to make sure he lays home the point, being the heel here. He says, and the loser of this match, Balls Mahoney, which Kelly was not a fan of. She gets in the ring to check on Balls Mahoney. Something brewing there in the air that night in Cincinnati. And the Miz and the other two from the Extreme Expose get in. They're like, Kelly, no. Come with us. And Kelly reluctantly leaves with the Miz and company, while Balls Mahoney looks like a sad boy on the ropes. And then that was it. That was the Miz and Balls Mahoney. Absolutely riveting television. September the 4th, 2007. It is what it is. The biggest thing coming out of this was who's Kelly gonna leave with, you know what I mean? And she left with the Miz. I don't even remember what happened with the follow-up for this. Eventually, I'm sure Extreme Expose splits up, and Kelly probably turns on the. I don't know. It's been a while. I haven't watched WWE ECW probably since it aired live. So there you go. After that, we had a John Morrison promo. John Morrison, the ECW World Champion, who had some riveting lines to say here. That sounds like I'm not taking it seriously. This was a good promo, especially John Morrison, who was just a few months removed from changing his name to John Morrison, is really kicking in the new character, if you will. There's a little bit of music playing in the background. Morrison calls himself an avatar and a portal to the infinite. Is what John Morrison thinks of himself. And he also calls CM Punk what did he say here? He hardly looks like a champion. He barely looks like a man. Really just laying into the fact that CM Punk, as he states here, I wrote it down, picks his tattoos out of a coloring book and looks like a Blink-182 groupie. And John Morrison just basically ran down CM Punk, hyped himself up, as the typical heel would, in unique fashion, I will say. He got creative here with his lines towards Punk and his lines about himself. So there you go. John Morrison giving you one more sell on the main event. The last chance for CM Punk coming up later that night. Next up on this show, we got a tag team matchup. Elijah Burke and Kevin Thorne, two former members of the New Breed, taking on Stevie Richards and the Innovator of Silence, Tommy Dreamer. And they showed highlights from the week before where Kevin Thorne defeated Stevie Richards. And now we got the follow-up to this. So not much going on in this matchup. Again, I shouldn't say that because, you know, it's not like my expectations were high. It was a fine matchup. It was a fine tag team match. Stevie Richards started it off with Kevin Thorne, tags in Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer eventually is the one getting beat up by the heel team, and eventually leads up to Stevie Richards getting the big hot tag, came out, House of Fire. And, you know, I will say, decent crowd reactions for Stevie Richards and especially Tommy Dreamer upon their entrances here. Again, this was WWE ECW. These were taped, like, not like days in advance, but like they would be taped at, like, I know just because from going from one of the tapings I remember, let's say, I'm pretty sure ECW aired at what, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, so like they would tape this thing at 7 and then edit it together and it would air that night. So like, you know, there's a couple hour difference, so I don't know if they were piping in, you know, crowd noises or anything. I don't know, doesn't matter anyway. Let's just pretend they didn't and give Stevie Richards and Tommy Dreamer some love here from the Cincinnati crowd. But again, building into that hot tag for old Stevie Richards, who ends up getting in there. And then eventually, Tommy Dreamer hits a big cactus clothesline to Kevin Thorne. They go spilling to the outside. Right before that, Stevie Richards got sent into the corner. Elijah Burke comes up with the Elijah Express, which is a double knee attack to the back of your opponent. And then he falls down. Elijah Burke and Kevin Thorne score the victory in this very short but sweet tag team matchup. It was fine. It was a fine tag team matchup. And, you know, real quick, Stevie Richards, I just saw, this is like a month and change ago now, but I guess he does some YouTube show now where he breaks down like wrestling and wrestling maneuvers and trying to make it more safe and whatnot. I don't know. The only clip I saw was him right after the Nia Jax return, just basically burying Nia Jax and calling her like, not like calling her a piece of shit, unsafe worker, but just being like, you see this here? This is not what you do. He had it on the screen, freaking stop and start. I was like, Stevie Richards, you know, that's a good mind right there. We need to get him in the back of one of these companies. I'm pretty sure he did it for AEW too, and then AEW told him to take it down or something. That's just, it was off the top of my head. That's the last time I saw anything Stevie Richards before this matchup. But old Stevie Richards unfortunately fell to Elijah Burke, which this is 2007 is about the height of his WWE run. The New Breed, everyone, well, I don't want to say everyone remembers, but I'm sure some people remember. Elijah Burke, Kevin Thorne, Matt Striker, and then the guy who just, unfortunately, you know, should have had a way bigger career, Marcus Corvan, a.k.a. Monty Brown from TNA, came to WWE, was a part of ECW, and then I believe retired. I believe he's pretty sure he's gone by September of 2007. I think he retired to, I looked it up, but honestly, like, maybe last year. It was something, it was like family stuff, and it wasn't like anything bad, but he stepped away, like, bad for him, or like, you know, something like, it wasn't a Chris Benoit thing, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, but like, I don't know how to put it. But I think it was like a family thing. I think he honestly retired, like, take care of his mother or something. Let's look it up. I don't know. It's been a while. There's not too much to talk about on this show. Let's look it up. Marcus Corvan. Yeah, by the way, Marcus Corvan, another guy who had a badass action figure, and also Fire theme song in WWE. It was like, you're going down, 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 you're going smooth. And I don't know where that happens from there, but Marcus Corvan, go listen to his theme song. Let's see here. Corvan, alright, I'm reading this from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt, but Corvan would wrestle his last match on the June 19th episode of ECW in a semi-final tournament loss for the vacant ECW World Championship against CM Punk, where the winner would compete at Vengeance on the champions against Chris Benoit. In late June 2007, Corvan took several months off for unspecified family issues after a 3-month after being inactive for 3 months. I can't read. WWE announced on September 19th that Corvan was released from his WWE contract without making his return to television. Corvan subsequently retired from pro wrestling after being released. So maybe he would have came back. I don't know. I don't know when the last time anybody in the wrestling business talked to Marcus Corvan was. I'm sure somebody has contact with him. But that's like a dude who like doesn't have social media, I don't think. Or if he does, he doesn't use it. But And then again, like, hasn't been seen since, hasn't made any appearance, didn't go back to TNA, doesn't do conventions from what I understand. Nobody really knows much about Marcus Corvon, Monty Brown's whereabouts these days. But that dude was awesome, man. Big star in TNA, probably should have been bigger than he was, and then jumps to WWE and probably would have had a lot better of a run had he just, had, I guess, life not come up. But, everything happens for a reason. But Marcus Corvon, how do I get it here? Marcus Corvon was badass. Elijah Burke, we were going to talk about him because 2007 was like the height of his ECW, of his WWE run. He started on SmackDown, I think, in late 06. Him and Sylvester Terkay. Hey, look at right up here, guys. It's right up here. Who remembers Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay? I remember them working Rey Mysterio one week on SmackDown. That's all I remember. And I think they get moved to ECW. I guess Terkay probably got fired or something. I don't know. And then the New Breed comes about. That's pretty much his 2007. And the only other thing I remember about Elijah Burke's run in ECW, or in WWE, because of course he ends up jumping to TNA eventually, becoming the Pope, D'Angelo Dinero. But the only other thing I remember about his run in WWE is CM Punk saying, I don't know where he said this, but it was maybe an interview. Maybe it was maybe it was a Wizard World Comic-Con. Was I there for when he said this? Was it the one I went to? I don't know, but CM Punk said that, like, working with Elijah Burke, like, every time he would just be complaining about getting hurt or something. And that's all I remember. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to think if he said that at the Wizard World Comic-Con 2012 Q&A panel that I was at, which I'm pretty sure the full thing of that is on YouTube. Philadelphia Comic-Con 2012 CM Punk. Pretty sure that full Q&A is on YouTube somewhere. I didn't ask a question. I was 13 at the time. I was too scared. But I was there for the whole thing. He might have said it during that Q&A. I forget. But that's, yeah, anyway, Elijah fucking Burke. I don't know. I don't know what else you want from me. But and then I believe after that, we just move into the main event of this show. So first we get a nice video package for John Morrison and CM Punk recapping their rivalry, which was pretty much the rivalry of the summer on ECW. They fought at Vengeance, Great American Bash, SummerSlam. They had another non-title match, I believe, on ECW sometime during the summer. I don't know when it was. And then, of course, now this match, which would be their fifth match of the summer 2007. So we get a video package highlighting the whole thing, and then we move in to your main event, the last chance for CM Punk to defeat John Morrison and become the ECW World Champion. Did he do it? I don't know, let's talk about it. First things first, CM Punk coming out, crowd was red hot. I mean, I want to say this is the first thing that the crowd cared about all night, because there's a couple pops here and there, but CM Punk pretty red hot at this time, man. Like, he was like the saving grace of ECW during this time. They didn't have Punk on that show. This show dies a death, and it eventually did die a death. Maybe it's because they took Punk off it. I don't know, but you take CM Punk out of this show, and I mean, look at what you got. You got Big Daddy V. And freaking Kevin Thorne, like, that's ECW 2007. But the crowd hyped up for CM Punk to make his entrance for this matchup, and then John Morrison, of course, follows. Got some mat wrestling to start. John Morrison tries for a quick roll-up. CM Punk tries for one. And one of the big things throughout this matchup, of course, as I mentioned, was this is the fifth time they fought in the summer of 2007. A lot of reversals to, signature stuff, not necessarily the GTS or Starship Pain or some of their finishing maneuvers, but some of the signature go-tos for Morrison and Punk. At one point, Punk goes to hit his springboard clothesline from the ropes. Morrison cuts him off, takes him down, like almost like a flare bump from the top rope, so counters that just because knowing CM Punk's offense from there. Right before a commercial break, Punk's on the apron. Morrison goes for a sunset flip over top to try to hit the sunset flip towards to the floor on CM Punk. Punk counters, hits a nice looking springboard cross body before the commercial. So that was a nice spot. Again, countering out what you already know about your opponent. Some good old fashioned storytelling between John Morrison and CM Punk in this matchup. John Morrison goes for a backbreaker on Punk, hits it, then it's like the backbreaker, pick him back up, goes for the neck breaker, like the Rick Rude style neck breaker from behind. Punk countered that into a sunset flip into the ring for a near fall. That was a nice spot. Or actually, did he get a near fall? Pretty sure he did. And then Punk rolled over and John Morrison hit him with a knee to kind of cut off the comeback there. What do we got after that? I'm trying to like read my notes and talk at the same time. So, professional podcaster, John Morrison gets hit with a suplex by CM Punk, or I should say a superplex from the top rope that sounded like a bullet, man. That ring just freaking, I don't know, maybe it's just the times and the way it was mic'd up, freaking sounded like it hurt like hell. And that started a CM Punk comeback, which really started the closing stretch of this matchup, which was a lot of fun. Punk gets the comeback. I believe he goes for the GTS at some point. Morrison counters. Morrison ends up hitting the Starship Pain, which was one of his signature maneuvers at the time. He had that like corkscrew neck breaker. I forget, what did he call that? Something, what the hell, I'm not looking it up, fuck it. But he hit the Starship Pain, got a near fall, Punk kicked out. John Morrison again went for that corkscrew neck breaker, Punk countered that. Punk hit the knee in the corner, followed by the Bulldog, near fall, Morrison kicks out. John Morrison went for the flying chuck kick, which is the, disaster kick, springboard kick off the middle rope. Punk ducks, Morrison crashed and burned, and I believe after that was the second attempt. CM Punk picks him up, go to sleep on John Morrison, 1, 2, 3, and wins the ECW World Championship. But overall, gotta say, so it's a damn good matchup, man, between Morrison and Punk, especially that final stretch, which I didn't name everything accurately or in order, but, I tried to sum it up the best of my abilities. I talk about it in my current day reviews all the time. I'm not like a move-by-move guy, but when we're talking about these throwback shows, try to throw in there some of the sequences, because it's obviously not fresh in anybody's head. I don't just want to be like, yeah, it was a good matchup, Punk won the belt, and freaking good night. Trying to give you guys a little bit of substance in the sandwich here. You know what I'm saying? But second attempt at the GTS, scored the pinfall. CM Punk on his fifth and final attempt wins the ECW World Championship. And again, really good matchup. I would recommend going at least check this match out. You don't have to sit through this whole show because it was what I told you. But CM Punk and Morrison always had solid matches, not just on ECW, but years after, man. They fought, 2008, 2009. I remember a couple of solid matches from what I remember in the summer of 09. I'm pretty sure Morrison actually challenged Punk for the world title, or did he challenge Jeff Hardy for the world title? Might have been both. He definitely wrestled Punk in the summer of 09 on SmackDown, where Morrison was really on the rise. I don't think, now that I'm thinking about it, it was for the world title. I think he fought Jeff Hardy for the world championship, which was obviously probably pretty good as well. But John Morrison and Punk, always a good combination, no matter if it was ECW, SmackDown, Raw, nonetheless. And again, as I was mentioning at the top of this show, CM Punk, this kicks off basically a year-long run of him just raking in the accolades, whether he liked it or not. I know he talks about it on his the documentary that came out years ago, the Best in the World DVD, about like everything that followed after he lost the first World Championship. He was like, well, they gave me the World Tag Team titles and the Intercontinental title and this, that, and the third. I don't remember specifically what his words were, but Punk wins the ECW Championship, holds it to January, where he loses it to Chavo. Then he goes into March at WrestleMania, wins Money in the Bank, then goes on to win the World Heavyweight Championship, loses that, goes on to win the Tag Team Championships with Kofi Kingston, loses that, wins a tournament on Raw, goes on to beat William Regal for the Intercontinental Championship, leading into 2009. And then right after that, once he loses the IC title, CM Punk goes on to win Money in the Bank for the second year in a row. Punk just raking in accolades, man, year after year, and it started in 2007 with this victory. And CM Punk, man, gotta say, he had the Chicago trunks on, long hair, beard coming in. Yeah, you couldn't tell CM Punk nothing in 2007. Dude looked like a badass, was a badass, and CM Punk holding that ECW championship looked badass as well. But that was the show. Not too much to talk about, obviously, because it was just a 1-hour program compared to Raw and SmackDown, which were at 2 hours. But, at least, again, if you're going to go back and watch anything, watch Punk and Morrison. Kind of maybe wanted to go back and maybe watch the whole stretch of matches. I'm sure none of them were that long because there was the ECW Championship match on all the pay-per-views, so it probably got the short end of the stick every time. I doubt this would probably, I guarantee if I went back and looked, and I might be wrong, this might have been the longest match they had during their stretch. I'm just assuming I might be wrong, but I don't know. But CM Punk wins against John Morrison, and that was ECW September the 4th, 2007. Again, as I talked about at the top of this podcast, I wasn't even sure if I was going to review specifically anything CM Punk this week. Not that we wouldn't do it eventually here on the podcast, but I wanted to do it this week in light of if he were to return at Survivor Series, which he did, and we have made, countless videos this week talking about CM Punk, and once I think I'm done making CM Punk videos, we're going to move on to the next topic. Something comes up, and I'm like, well, I got to talk about this, and I might do that. There's been some rumors of CM Punk versus Roman Reigns happening post WrestleMania 40 sometime in 2024, and now I'm itching to give my thoughts on it. So we might post that video sometime this week, and remains to be seen. There's been a lot of CM Punk content. I apologize, CM Punk haters, probably not a big fan of the channel this week, but CM Punk lovers, absolutely loving it. Or just, you know, in between CM Punk fans. But, you know, either way, I myself a fan, having a lot of fun talking about the best in the world, CM Punk. But all in all, that's all I got. You know, shorter podcast this week, WWE ECW, again, only a 1-hour show. Not too much to break down, but I want to throw the discourse out to you guys. I do have an idea for next week's podcast. I believe I am going to run down, you know, last week we talked about the top 10 greatest rivalries of the Ruthless Aggression era. Next week, I'm thinking we run down, again, my personal list, the top 10 greatest moments of the Ruthless Aggression era. That may it's going to happen eventually. Maybe next week's podcast, unless somebody in the comments wants to throw out something else. And even if it doesn't happen next week, I'll at least have your intel to put towards the future. You know, we are heading into December, which is formerly the Armageddon month, which happened every single year of the Ruthless Aggression era. So I'm sure we're going to watch 1 or 2 Armageddons during the next month and do some retro reviews. Not sure which ones. 2004 keeps sticking out to me. I don't know why. I think the main event, Taker, Eddie, Booker, and JBL in a 4-way. It's been a while since I've watched that. Kind of want to watch it. Not sure. I don't know. Eventually, we're going to do an Armageddon retro review sometime in December. All remains to be seen. But let me know what you guys want to see here on the podcast down below in the comments. If you're listening on any of the audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, and more, come over to YouTube and leave your thoughts down below in the comments. But appreciate you guys checking out this week's podcast, Ruthless Discussions, episode number 9. The only podcast, at least that I know of, that only discusses the WWE Ruthless Aggression era. And I want to give you guys a thank you as well, because some of the content that we've been pulling from the podcast has been doing really well on the channel, and the growth has been pretty exponential for my channel standards over the last few weeks. So just want to extend a thank you to guys. Thank you to you guys if I can get it out as well. But that's going to be it, guys. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and go follow me across all social medias at Noah Nation Vlogs. And until next week, I'll see you guys in the next video and Ruthless Discussions Podcast. There you go. Not good at outros, but we will send it anyway. Peace.